Holy Bible, Revelation, chapter 2, verse 9. I have knowledge of your troubles and how poor you are, but you have true wealth, and the evil words of those who say they are Jews, and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. Holy Bible, Revelation, chapter 3, verse 9. See, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews, and are not, but say what is false. I will make them come and give worship before your feet, and see my love for you.
Now, I want you to bear with me because I'm going to indulge in a little of your time here and explain a few things for you to understand. All right? Today's Jews are not Judea, nor are they Judeans. This is very important to you ministers out here who are going to be listening to this. I really pray you get a notepad and a pen out and you start making some notes here, because there's a learning to take place here. Because you have been taught error in the seminaries by the Jewish rabbis. You have been taught error by your 501c3 tax-exempt, government-controlled and orchestrated church corporation. Those who have studied paleo history, and paleo is ancient, by the way, of the parchments, know that Saul, who was a Benjaminite, was the first king over Jacob Israel. And also that John was the first of Jacob Israel who was called Baptist. Please. Stay with me now. But we must ask the question, who was the first Jew? Is it a good question?
Very good question.
It's a very good question. Who was the first Jew? Well, neither Adam, Seth, nor Noah are called Jew. Nor were Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob, who was surnamed Israel, called Jew. Moses was not called a Jew, and neither was David or his son Solomon called a Jew. Now, in fact, you will not find the word Jew in the first 11 books of what you call the Bible. The first time Jews are mentioned in the parchments is in 2 Kings chapter 16 verse 6, and then only, you'll see I underlined it, in the translations revised in the 18th century. In 2 Kings chapter 16, you will find that Jacob Israel, Yahweh's people, was at war with the Jews and drove the Jews from Elath. Now, don't you find it interesting that you can read over 500 pages of the parchments or of your scriptures in your Bible before you find a Jew anywhere? And yet, those who call themselves a Jew today claim the first 5 books of the Bible is theirs, and they call it the Torah. Now, we have a problem here. If they say the first 5 books are theirs, and yet you can go through the first 11 books and not even see the word Jew. I mean, hello? Am I ringing a bell here today?
Yeah.
Yes. Now, don't you find it most interesting and rather strange that those who claim to have written the first 5 books of the Bible and call themselves a Jew, they can't find the word Jew written anywhere in the book that they claim is their own Bible and claim to have written. Yahweh in the flesh, who most referred to as Jesus, and he is the Almighty God in the flesh, as John chapter 1 verses 1 to 9 tell you, who most referred to as Jesus, tells John in Revelation chapter 2 verse 9, I know the blasphemy or the lies of them which say they are Jews and are not, but they are of the synagogue of Satan. Well, isn't that interesting? Because it says in Matthew, in the parable of the wheat and the tares, in chapter 13 of Matthew, the father had given a parable. And when the multitude, the mixed multitude went away, because he didn't educate the mixed multitude, because it wasn't for them to know or to understand, because he was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Jacob Israel, as recorded in Matthew chapter 15, and commanded his disciples to go only to the lost sheep of the house of Jacob Israel in chapter 10 of Matthew. But he was declaring here the parable of the tares of the field, and the disciples wanted to know what he meant. And he said here, he that soweth the good seed are the seed of Adam. Because Adam was the son of Yahweh God, in Luke chapter 3 verse 38. The field is the world. The good seed, or the good guys with the white hats on, are the children of the kingdom. But the tares are the children of the wicked one. There's two children, see? Physical. This isn't spiritual here. Right. And the enemy, in verse 39 of chapter 13, Matthew says, the enemy that sowed them is Satan, and the harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are the angels. It says that Satan has children on the earth, and then the Father made it very easy for you to understand in John 8:44, where he said to the Jews, as he was talking to them in John 8:31, as he spoke to the Jews. Now, in John 8:44, he said to the Jews, you are of your father the devil. Oh, there we go back to Matthew. There's the enemy. And he says, you're liars, thieves, and murderers. And then he said in John 8:47, you are not even of God. Why couldn't they have been of God? Because they were of Satan, they were of the devil. Right. Isn't that hard? But you see, when you go up here, and what we just talked about, they are the synagogue of Satan. They are the Christ murderers. They are the Yahweh murderers. That's right. They are the thieves of the U.S. Treasury today. That's right. They are the murder butchers of the undeclared wars of our young men and women all over the world to make money and grab oil and natural gas deposits and do what they can to plunder and pillage all over the world using the blood and flesh of our young boys and girls in the military. All right? And this is where we're coming from. In John the Divine, in Revelations 2:9. I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews. But they can't prove it, do you understand? Which say, oh, they can say anything. They can, oh, the cow jumped over the moon. It doesn't mean there's a cow that can jump over the moon. That's no different than the Jews being Yahweh's children. Right. Which say, you can't believe a Jew because the Father said they're liars. Right. And they've taken over your Senate and your Congress in Washington. They've taken over most of your state capitals and the entire banking industry of the world, including the United States of America. Now, we know that Yahweh, Almighty God, changed the name of Abram to Abraham. Is this correct? Yep. It's recorded in Genesis chapter 13, verse 5. 17, verse 5. And then he changed the name of Jacob to Israel in Genesis 32:28. But, and there's a lot of buts out there, but nowhere in the parchments or scriptures of the Bible where you find where Yahweh changed the name of Israel to Jew.
Oh my. Wow.
Now you think about these things. You think about who the perpetrators of evil are. Who has debased your currency and stole all your gold and silver. We've been there in other lectures. Right. All right? They are the synagogue of Satan. Who goes to these synagogues today? Jews. Oy. Therefore, there is no authority by which those who say they are Jews can claim to be of Jacob Israel, or the true Israelites or Hebrews of today. Now,
it's 67 words long, it's 100 years old, and it changed the course of history for the Middle East and the Jewish people. The Balfour Declaration, the expression of the British government's support for a Jewish home in Palestine, was sent by British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour to the second Lord Rothschild. I'm here in Buckinghamshire at Waddesdon Manor to speak with the fourth Lord Rothschild, about the Balfour Declaration, what it means for Britain, for the Jewish people and the Rothschild family.
The Foreign Office, November the 2nd, 1917. Dear Lord Rothschild, I have much pleasure in conveying to you, on behalf of His Majesty's Government, the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspirations, which has been submitted to and approved by the Cabinet.
So it's possibly the most famous letter in modern Jewish history, and it begins with 3 words: Dear Lord Rothschild. Why was it that this letter was sent by the Foreign Secretary to your great uncle Walter?
It's an interesting question because he was really interested in ornithology, although he became interested in Zionism. I think the reason was this, that it was primarily a movement from Eastern Europe, but they didn't clarify who was in charge of that movement. And in addition, it was, after all, in Great Britain. So they felt that the Rothschild family should be the one to whom it was addressed. And Walter was Lord Rothschild, and he was a Zionist. And those really are the background reasons.
So Walter received the Balfour Declaration, and I have a copy here. And I wonder if I could possibly ask you to read it for us.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. I'm going to put on my spectacles to make sure I read it accurately. His Majesty's Government view with favour the establishment of Palestine as a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavours to facilitate the achievement of this object, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country. I should be grateful if you would bring this declaration to the knowledge of the Zionist Federation. Yours, Arthur Balfour.
And here it is, the Balfour Declaration. What do you feel when you see it here?
I genuinely feel it's one of the most extraordinary moments in the history of the Jewish people. If you think it took 3,000 years to get to this.
And of course the Rothschild family then as now filled 2 roles, because it wasn't just a leader of diaspora Jewry, it also played a very significant role in the early years of the establishment of the pioneer communities in Israel. I just want to revisit for a moment your cousin Dorothy, who you mentioned, who at an extraordinarily young age, still in her teens, played such a critical role as a go-between and a facilitator for Chaim Weizmann. Can you say a little bit about her?
Well, she married my cousin Jimmy when she was 17.
So this is your cousin Dorothy, Dolly.
Yep, Mrs. James de Rothschild.
And from her teenage years onwards, she was a major supporter of Israel, wasn't she?
Major supporter. I mean, she worshipped her husband, who'd been deeply committed, son of Baron Edmore. It was due to him, I think, that she became interested. But once she became interested, she became passionately interested. After his death, she became even more committed. She just wanted to carry out his wishes and what he cared deeply about. And you can read letters from her to Weizmann and from Weizmann to her when she was only 17. And what she did, which was crucially important, was to connect up Weizmann with the British establishment.
I think she also trained him in how to deal. She helped educate how to
and it's
conduct
extraordinary
himself.
at that age, but she did sort of tell Weizmann, how to kind of integrate, how to insert himself into British establishment life, which he learned very quickly.
So I'm here in the Waddesdon Manor archives, where there is a treasure trove of remarkable documents from the time of the Balfour Declaration. We have the correspondence here between the teenage Dorothy and her husband James, and it's really a love story. Here we have detailed letters describing her dealings with Zionist leaders, her advice and her suggestions regarding the conferences of the Zionist movement. And here we have a letter that the young Dorothy, still not 20, sent to Dr. Chaim Weizmann, where she's talking about the meetings that she's arranged for him. And as we've heard, she was helpful in training and preparing him to enter into the highest echelons of British society to advance the cause of the Zionist movement. And she was an important character.
Did you know that the Star of David has no biblical reference and cannot be found anywhere in the Torah? That's right, there is no reference to the Star or Shield of David at all. In fact, the earliest archaeological finds can be found on the wall of the 6th century synagogue within the borders of ancient Israel. However, there have been variations of the symbol used in other cultures as well, at much earlier dates, which I'll go over soon. However, this star was not popularized again into the modern culture until it was used by the Zionist movement, which was started by the Rothschild banking dynasty in association with Theodor Herzl. As it turns out, Meir Amschel Bauer, an Ashkenazi Jew, who was the son of a moneylender, got the inspiration of using this hexagram from his father, who bared this symbol on the entrance door to his counting house. Bauer, recognizing the significance of the red hexagram, changed his name from Bauer to Rothschild, named after the red hexagram, or the sign signifying 666, hanging over the entrance door. Roth is German for red, shield is German for sign, red shield, red sign. So Rothschild literally means this symbol. Bauer was also believed to be well versed in Jewish mysticism and other Kabbalist teachings. The six-pointed star is called a hexagram, and to many Christians, the symbol represents the nation of Israel. They call it the Star of David. However, as mentioned earlier, no such Star of David can be found in the Bible or the Torah. But for a closer look at history and the purpose of this symbol, you will find that it reveals something much different to what we're being told. The star consists of two intertwined triangles, one pointing up to God and the other pointing down to man, symbolizing the relationship between the two worlds, the spiritual world and the physical world. While there are many other interpretations for the symbol, it is commonly said to mean as above, so below. However, numerically, it is also representative of the number 666, which biblically is the number of the beast. But to break it down more clearly, we can see that there are 6 points on this star. There are also 6 triangles or pyramids within the star. And then finally, there is also a 6-sided polygon within the star, 666. Also, a Masonic book called The Second Mile, an Eastern Star book, reveals that the 6-pointed star is a very ancient symbol and one of the most powerful. They quote, "The hexagram is used in magic, witchcraft, sorcery and occultism, and the casting of zodiacal horoscopes by astrologers. It was considered to possess mysterious powers." However, to get a proper understanding of this symbol, we first need to go back to see what is written in the Bible. And just before we do, I firstly wanted to mention that there are no commandments from Jesus or the apostles that says Christians have to get involved with God's plan for the nation of Israel, especially militarily or politically. Anything short of sharing the gospel with them. The Bible does not command it at all, so I have no idea why many Christians get behind Israel like their souls depend on it. With that said, at the end of Acts 6, we are introduced with the character called Stephen, who is a follower of Jesus. In these verses, Stephen is seized and brought before the council of Jewish leaders. Verse 11 through 15 record of the false accusations made towards Stephen. It is written, "Then they suborned men, which said, We have heard him speak blasphemous words against Moses and against God. And they stirred up people, and the elders, and the scribes, and came upon him, and caught him, and brought him to the council, and set up false witnesses, which said, This man casteth not to speak blasphemous words against this holy place and the law. For we have heard him say, that Jesus of Nazareth shall destroy this place, and shall change the customs which Moses delivered to us. And all that sat in the council looked steadfastly upon him, saw his face as it has been the face of an angel." So, here we see Stephen accused of speaking blasphemous words against Moses, Jewish customs, God, and the God's dwelling place, the temple. Beginning in verse 37, Stephen recounts of when the fathers refused the oracles given to Moses on Mount Sinai, and instead desired to set up their own gods. Quote, "To whom our fathers would not obey, but thrust him from them, and in their hearts turned back again into Egypt, saying unto Aaron, Make us gods to go before us. For as for this Moses which brought us out of the land of Egypt, we wot not what is become of him. And they made a calf in those days, and offered up sacrifices unto the idol, and rejoiced in the works of their own hands. Then God turned and gave them up to the worship to the hosts of heavens, as it is written in the book of prophets, O ye house of Israel, have ye offered to me slain beasts and sacrifices by the space of 40 years in the wilderness? Yea, ye take up the tabernacle of Moloch, and the star of your god Remphan, figures which ye made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon." Some Christians relate the symbol of Moloch with Lucifer. However, there are far more esoteric meanings behind it. According to many biblical commentaries, the word Remphan is synonymous with the planet Saturn. Remphan also appears to have been understood by the Septuagint translators as an equivalent for the Hebrew word Chayun, which is supposed by many scholars to be identified with the planet Saturn. And keeping that Chayun word in mind, we also come across this which is written in Amos 5:26. "But ye have borne the tabernacle of your Moloch, and the Chayun your images, the star of your god which ye made to yourselves." Moloch, Chayun, and Remphan are all names for the star god Saturn, whose symbol is a 6-pointed star formed by 2 triangles. Saturn was the supreme god of the Chaldeans, whose teachings can be found in Freemasonry today. And unsurprisingly, this crypto-Judaic front, known as Freemasonry, also has the great goal to one day rebuild Solomon's temple. That's the occult one, not the Jewish one. One of the main reasons it's called the Star of David is because King Solomon adopted it as his main symbol when he was building pagan temples for some of his pagan wives. Former Satanists adamantly state that King Solomon actually became one of the most powerful shamans in world history, having slipped deeply into the practice of the occult. This view is also fully endorsed by 1 Kings 11:4-9. Just to highlight this in better detail, Dr. O.J. Graham, in his book The Six-Pointed Star, claims, "The first mention of this symbol was back in 922 BC, when Solomon got involved in witchcraft and magic. This book traces the worship of Ashtoreth and Chiun and Remphan from the Egyptians before Solomon's time. Then afterwards, in the Arab magic and witchcraft through the Middle Ages, it was used by the Druids during the highest Sabbath of the witches called Halloween. The family of Rothschild, the pioneers of Zionism, and Hitler have all used this symbol, as has the cassette. Finally, it is featured on the flag of Israel. Today it is recognized as the Jewish symbol. However, it is anything but Jewish. We can also see Saturn depicted as the six-pointed star in ancient Sumerian and Babylonian art. So we also know that it relates back to a time in which Kabbalism and Jewish mysticism was born. Kabbalah is a mystical and occult form of Jewish thought, and is the source for many occult practitioners, from Freemasons, pagans, to the New Age movement, and even Buddhists. Its central literature is found in the Book of Zohar, and if you do a bit of research you will find that it was all very common practice in these Talmudic times for Jewish mystics to recycle and even steal esoteric wisdoms from other cultures. This includes the Greeks, the Egyptians, the Babylonians, and even the Hindus. To quote the Jewish Encyclopedia on the origins of the Zohar, they claim, "To determine the country in which the work originated, and at the time at which its teachings began to develop, it is necessary to ascertain where and when the Jews became intimately acquainted with the Hindu philosophy, which more than any other exercised an influence on the Zohar." Further down they also claim, "The theory the Earth is a sphere revolving around us on its axis, which immortalized Copernicus, was previously known only to the Hindus, who were instructed in the truth of it by Aryabhata in the 1st century before the Common Era. As far as is known, the Vedanta school of Hindu philosophers found nowhere outside of its place of origin. Under its influence, the Mohammedans of Persia found many mystic sects, among them being that the Sufis, who for many centuries were very numerous. This mystic movement did not fail to exercise an influence upon the Persian Jews, and there arose among them various sects, such as the Isawites and the Huguenots, etc. In Hinduism, we also see the use of this hexagram in the form of something called yantras. These yantras all represent a different form of prayer to a deity and a different element, symbol within each yantra. For an example, one yantra is dedicated to obtaining money, wealth and power, and another is linked exclusively to the Hindu god Shiva. We also know that there is a direct relevance to the planet Saturn and the planet Mars and the alignment of those two planets. Perhaps Mayer Amschel Bauer, Rothschild, and his father Moses associated their money worship with Shiva and the yantras for wealth, but who knows for sure. One thing is for certain, this handed down knowledge, which the Jews recycled for themselves, would become an instrumental part of what is Kabbalah and Judaism today. As we know, modern Jews who put the Talmud above the Torah, through the guise of Judaism, we have a religious sect which openly worships the Gnostic and mystic aspects of ancient cultures and long-forgotten god deities. So we can clearly see how astrology, Saturn worship, Moloch worship, and even heliocentricity was all originally coined under Kabbalism. It is central and exclusive to Jewish mysticism and the Zohar, and much of the teachings are being pushed into mainstream science even today. While some people claim that the so-called Star of David has had many practical uses in history by different cultures, that part is true. But all of the information associated with the hexagram and mysticism seems to find itself in the same place, Kabbalism. From the perspective of a true Jew who follows the Torah, it is written that these types of mysticism are forbidden and related to Satan. And from a true Christian perspective, they should view this star as an abomination and should not associate it with God's chosen people. because even the New Testament forbids this type of mysticism. In fact, these people are said to be false Jews in the book of Revelations. Revelations 2.9 says, "I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich. I know about the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan." So there you have it, folks. From the Christian perspective, or the Torah true Jew perspective, the star is synonymous with evil and is not a symbol of David, but is a symbol of wealth, Shiva, Saturn, and Satan, and is now the symbol that Rothschild demands is used on the flag of the State of Israel. The same star that the people of Israel decorate their tanks and bombs with. The same star that brainwashed Christians idolize even today. That's about all I have time for today, folks, but if you do want to read more on this topic, check the description below where I list some sources. And also be sure to subscribe, as I really do enjoy covering these types of topics. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask in the comments section below. Also, I wanted to let you guys know, in pursuit of finding an alternative to Facebook and Reddit, I'd like to announce that I'm no longer on Reddit, and I have since gone to Steam it. So if you're on that platform, be sure to find me. Until next time, guys, thanks for watching.
Is the foulest, the most evil of all symbols in the occult world. There is nothing that can even come close. It is this symbol that must be used during high ceremonial magic or high ceremonial witchcraft when you are summoning up demons to this plane of existence. Demons to this plane of existence.
This symbol is used in black magic. It comes from the Jewish Kabbalah, Jewish magic. It is a symbol of dark summoning. What I mean by that is that if you want to put a hex on somebody, you want to cause a spirit to come forth, this is the symbol that's used. It's called a hexagram. Now, it is not, never has been, never will be the Star of David.
The Star of David, where does that symbol come from?
It's never written explicitly in the Bible itself.
Is it in the Talmud? Perhaps. Is there a passage in the Bible about that or no?
No.
Okay. So you're not really sure exactly where that comes from?
No. You got me.
Is it nobody knows, huh?
I don't know. I'm not, yeah.
Because I know it's called the Star of David.
Yeah.
Does it have anything to do with David?
No, I don't think so.
There must be somewhere. I do not remember exactly what the association was.
Okay. I believe that what they call the Star of David is actually the Star of Remphan. Because when you study the Bible, you'll see that when they worshipped other gods, the Bible talks about them carrying the banner of the star of their god Remphan.
You rejected the God of the Bible. You took up for yourself the star, that's the sixth one, the star, of your God, called Remphan or Kiyun. All these were names for Moloch, the great Baal, the great fire god, who was the devil. You get back to the Masonic fraternity of Freemasonry.
Yeah.
Their great symbol is G. You'll look at the star on the compass, which is a stylized Star of David. In fact, they have the entire Star of David in many Masonic temples. Why is that? Masonry is a study of Judaism and of the Kabbalah. Albert Pike said in his book Morals and Dogma that the Kabbalah is the very basis. Without the Kabbalah, we would not have the 33 rituals of the Masonic Lodge. But the god they worship, the great architect, is Moloch, the star god.
This is a hexagram. It is an important symbol used in magic, secret societies, Luciferianism, and Satanism. as well as others. Don't be fooled by the definition they give you, telling you this is the Star of David. No, it's a 6-pointed star. God gave the children of Israel no star and told them, have no graven images of the earth or the heavens. So no, it is not the Star of David. Here is another hexagram. It is hidden within these stars on the back of the dollar bill above the eagle's head. If you look really close to those stars, they form a hexagram. If you must, get you a pen or pencil and trace around those stars and watch what you see. It's hidden in plain sight. And over here on this side, where the pyramid is with the all-seeing eye, if you were to get a pencil or a pen and draw another pyramid facing down and formed a hexagram, it spells the word Mason at each of the 6 points. Check it out. At this point, over in the corner, there's the letter M. There's the letter A. There's the letter S. There's the letter O. And there's the letter N in that corner. So, that would be M, A, S, O, N. This is how these people operate. They operate in signs and symbols and codes so that you don't understand. But once you're awakened, their games are exposed. Now, in these next pictures, you will be able to see and prove to that this symbol is used in the secret societies and the occult. Y'all better wake up. Satan is not in a hole in the ground somewhere. He's running the earth.
Look at verse 8. It says, "Unto the angel of the church in Smyrna write, These things saith the first and the last, which was dead and is alive." Of course, Jesus Christ speaking there. He says in verse 9, "I know thy works, and tribulation, and poverty, but thou art rich." So here's a church that's a hard-working church, but they're going through some trials and tribulations. He says they have poverty, but look what he says there in parentheses, "but thou art rich." See, physically they were poor. They didn't have any money on this earth, but they were rich in good works. And look what he says next. "And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life." So, he talks about the fact that they're going through tribulation, and he said that they were suffering and that they should not fear the things that they're suffering. He says you're going to be cast into prison, be faithful unto death. He's talking about people being killed for the cause of Christ, going into prison for the cause of Christ. And in the midst of this, he throws in this statement, "I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan." Now, what is that statement doing in the midst of a discussion about tribulation, persecution, prison, martyrdom? Why bring up the synagogue of Satan? Why bring up these people who say they are Jews and are not, but do lie? Well, it's very easy to understand once you identify who the synagogue of Satan is. Go to Romans chapter 2, if you would. Romans chapter 2. Now, I've heard a lot of preaching that discuss the synagogue of Satan, and I personally have never heard any preacher that I listen to properly identify the synagogue of Satan. And it always boggled my mind, because to me it's very obvious when you just read this passage and take it for what it says, who the synagogue of Satan are. First of all, they are someone who says that they're a Jew. Now, doesn't that eliminate a lot of people right away? I mean, does everybody that you know say that they're a Jew? Does every religion on this planet claim to be Jews and say, we're Jews, I'm a Jew? No. Whoever the synagogue of Satan are, they are people who say that they're Jews. But are they Jews? No, they're not. Now, the other thing that you should notice is that this group is called the Synagogue of Satan. Does every religion have synagogues? Does every person go to a synagogue, or is every person a member of a synagogue? No. But if we look at this, it's very obvious when we think about the fact that there is a group of people in this world who do go to a synagogue, who do have a synagogue, and who say that they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. And that is people who follow the religion of Judaism. Now you say, wait a minute, Pastor Anderson. There's no way that's the synagogue of Satan, because they're saying that they're Jews and they really are Jews. Can't you see that they're Jews, Pastor Anderson? You know, these people that go to the synagogue and that practice Judaism. Can't you tell by, you know, the black hat that they're wearing? Can't you tell by, you know, the way that they dress and maybe the little hat that they have on the back of their head? Can't you see the kosher meal being ordered on the airplane and know that these are Jews, Pastor Anderson? But hold on a second. Are they really Jews? These that go to a Jewish synagogue? These that practice the religion of Judaism? Well, look down at your Bible. The Bible says in Romans 2:28, for he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly. So could it be that there are some that we look at outwardly and say, hey, there's a Jew. Yep, that's a Jew. And really they're not a Jew. He says, for he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly. Neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh, but he is a Jew, which is one inwardly. And circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not in the letter, whose praise is not of men, but of God. So let me ask them, do you think that the guy that Paul's talking about in Romans 2, who he says, well, he's not a Jew, which is one outwardly, do you think that guy goes around saying he's a Jew? I'll bet you he does. Of course he does. But Paul says, nope, he's not a Jew. He says he's one, but he's not. I'll prove it to you further. Look at Philippians 3. Keep in mind, Philippi is a city of Macedonia. Paul is writing unto the Gentiles in Philippians 3. And look what he says in verse 3. For we are the circumcision, which worship God in the Spirit and rejoice, listen to this, in Christ Jesus, and have no confidence in the flesh. So according to that, who's the true circumcision? Those who rejoice in Christ Jesus. Let me ask you this. Does the Jewish synagogue or the religion of Judaism rejoice in Christ Jesus? What does Christ mean? Christ means Messiah. Does Judaism teach that Jesus is the Messiah? No, Judaism does not teach that Jesus is the Messiah. They don't rejoice in Christ Jesus, then let me tell you something. They're not the circumcision.
This is directed at the people that deny the facts, no matter how clear the evidence is to the contrary. No! No! It's absolutely undeniable that these Jewish people are in these positions of power, that they've infiltrated our governments, that they run the media, so on and so forth. And we can all see this for ourselves. But so many people, either purposely or from not knowing any better, they come along and they suggest that it's either the Illuminati, the Freemasons, etc. Basically, I describe that as chasing ghosts, suggesting that it's a group of people that no one can really put their finger on. It's just the Illuminati, as if everything stops at that point in time, that we should look no further or not try and make any further connections, clear connections. I mean, this makes people feel as though they've figured something out without having to point a finger at a real group of people, hurt anyone's feelings in the process, or be branded and mislabeled as an anti-Semite, without ever questioning the entire system or why it is that a person would be deemed an anti-Semite simply for taking note and making clear observations. But ultimately, they shoot themselves in their own foot when they do such a thing. Because as I'm going to point out now, this group of people, the people that in the real world are behind these conspiracies, and these supposed ghosts, are one and the same. Jews were actively involved in the beginnings of Freemasonry in America. There is evidence they were among those who established Masonry in the majority of the original 13 states. A Jewish Mason, Moses Michael Hayes, helped introduce the Masonic Scottish Rite in America. Paul Revere served under him as Deputy Grand Master. There were several other Jews who held Masonic titles in the late 1700s. Solomon Bush in Pennsylvania, Joseph Myers in Maryland and South Carolina, Abraham Forst in Virginia in 1781. Another Jewish Grand Master was Moses Sykes in Rhode Island from 1791 until 1800. There were many other Jewish Masons in early American history. Jewish Masons played an important part in the American Revolution, with 24 of them serving as officers in George Washington's army. In addition, several helped finance the American cause, including Haym Solomon, a Philadelphia Jewish Mason who with others contributed and raised money for the American war effort and loaned money to Jefferson, Madison, Lee, and many others. There is evidence that Jews, including rabbis, continued to be involved in the Masonic movement in the United States. There have been at least 51 Jewish American Grand Masters. Today there are many Jews active in Masonry in America and other countries. Israel has about 60 Masonic lodges with 3,000 members. One of the unheralded and least known facts about Freemasonry and the Masonic Lodge is its Jewish origin and nature. The religion of Judaism, based on the Babylonian Talmud and the Jewish Kabbalah, formed the basis for the Scottish Rite's 33 ritual degree ceremonies. Thus, the Jewish Tribune of New York on October 28, 1927 stated, "Masonry is based on Judaism. Eliminate the teachings of Judaism from the Masonic ritual and what is left." Also, the well-known rabbi Isaac Wise was emphatic when he concluded, "Freemasonry is a Jewish establishment whose history, grades, official appointments, passwords, and explanations are Jewish from beginning to end." In their own words. The Illuminati is wholly Jewish, started by a Jew turned Catholic, operated by the Jews who control the money, now used as a convenient myth by Jewish writers to say the problem is not really Jewish. Many trusted and respected leaders of society secretly belong to this cult and are gradually turning humanity into their mind-controlled slaves. The process is designed to appear natural. Wars, including the Cold War and this war on terror, are based on hoaxes. Humanity has a terminal disease. We are in a state of collective denial. Every facet of Western society has been subverted. This includes business, education, the military, mass media, the government, and all religions. The elite Jews and their Gentile puppets alike are either dupes or agents. That is the condition for advancement. Those who reach positions of power either play by their rules or they stand no chance to play the game at all. That is how a small group of people can control the rest. It's a multi-step process that was gained by controlling the money, controlling the government, and controlling the mass media, among many other things, but those were the three main pieces of the puzzle. The relationship of Zionists to the Illuminati mirrors that of Freemasonry, which the Jews also control. A quote from Illuminati founder Adam Weishaupt: "The lodge shall be our nursery garden. All those who are not suited to the work shall remain in the Masonic lodge and advance in that without knowing anything of the further system." A Jewish goldsmith born Amschmel Moses Bauer opened a counting house and over the door placed his sign, a red shield featuring a Star of David. The shield is the same flag granted to the Prague Jews by Charles IV and is in accordance with the Frankist doctrine of Edom or Esau. And the red banner of the Khazars, or Red Jews, as Red Shield in German, is Rothschild. Bauer's son, Amschur Meyer Bauer, took on the name Rothschild. It is Rothschild who said, "Give me control of a nation's money, and I care not who makes her laws." That was their first step, to take control of the nation's money. In 1773, Mayor Rothschild had invited 12 other wealthy and influential men representing in all the 13 bloodlines of the Illuminati to convince them to pool their resources in a plot to bring about a new world order. Thus, Adam Weishaupt commissioned to establish the Illuminati. On May 1st, 1776, Weishaupt announced the foundation of the Order of Perfectibilists, which later became more widely known as the Illuminati. So again, the purpose of bringing this up, and without going into greater detail, is simply to make the point that each and every one of you that comes along and points out that it's the Illuminati or the Masons or one of these other secret organizations, that still does not take away from the fact that Jews actually were heavily involved, or they created these organizations entirely on their own. And to point out that there are Gentiles in these organizations as well does nothing to address the issue as to who is truly in control. Of course they have puppets that they control, subordinates that carry out their dirty deeds, that goes without saying. But regardless, it's not the Illuminati that's controlling things. It's not the Masons that are controlling things. And there are Jews that are in none of these organizations that are still controlling the finances, the media, the government, and subjugating and enslaving us all. There's no prerequisite that they have to be in the Illuminati, but there is a prerequisite that they have to be Jewish. So let's just say that you're attacked by a group of people from another race, and they're doing it because you don't belong to their race. Well, let's just assume that some of them belong to this gang, some belong to this other gang, or this organization or that organization, but the one thing that makes them different from you, and the one thing that's motivating them to attack you, is that you belong to one race, and above all else, whatever other affiliations they may or may not have, they belong to the other race. And in that context, that is what matters. Whether some of them belong to an organization or not, the bottom line is race in that scenario is what matters. The same thing can be said here, where you have Jewish people that are controlling these things. Some of them may be in the Illuminati. Some of them may be Freemasons. Some of them may be something, this, that, or the other, skull and bones, or who knows, whatever you want to say. But the bottom line is, those who are truly in control have one thing in common. And the fact that they're Jewish is what binds them together, what keeps them working towards a common goal.
When I research these secret societies, and I research the Bible, and by the way, I'm a Christian, so if you're a Christian, don't think I'm knocking your religion. I'm not. I'm just telling you what I found. I have found that at the very heart and core of all these secret societies lurks the Kabbalah. The Kabbalah is the ancient Jewish mysticism. It is a method of encoding information through a system of mathematics and numbers. It is some of the most ancient knowledge that man has ever possessed, and has been kept secret and given only to those who have proven themselves worthy through the process of initiation. Nobody knows where it comes from. I can tell you this, it was there long before the Jews came along. The Jews just took it and preserved it, and they passed it down, and it's used by everybody, because it's at the heart and core of the secret knowledge the metaphysics, the real science that none of us know anything about. These people that belong to the secret societies never dared to write down in any language what they knew, what it was that they were guarding, because then someone could steal it and then the secret would be out. So they devised secret systems of encoding the secrets of the ages, the knowledge, the hidden knowledge, the occult. Now, occult doesn't mean evil. It doesn't mean the devil. It doesn't mean Satan. Occult means hidden. Means hidden. That's all it means. So they took this knowledge and they made it occult through a system of encoding, encryption, one of which is mathematics, numbers. Another is architecture. Everybody wonder, why do they have a fraternal organization called the Freemasons? Aren't those the guys that build walls? You bet they do. But every wall they build contains the secrets that have been kept and maintained throughout the ages, and it's encoded in the architecture and in the measurements of the buildings and in the mathematical formulas used to derive the geometry, the shape, the length and breadth and height of rooms. It's all encoded there.
The Kabbalah is a collection of Jewish magical texts which were given to mankind via psychic communion with a fallen angel called Raziel. Raziel is one of a pantheon of so-called fallen angels who serve the light-bringer Lucifer. The Kabbalah describes the many angels and demons who inhabit the spiritual realm. The Kabbalah gives Kabbalists a roadmap called the Tree of Life, which explains how to invoke and communicate with these powerful spirits. The magical information in the Kabbalah originates from Babylon and ancient Egypt at the time of the pharaohs, but did not reach Europe in printed form until the 11th and 12th centuries. The sacred books of the Kabbalah are just a few thousand words long, but they contain complex descriptions of a spherical Earth, parallel universes, and the atomic nature of matter, ideas which have become common doctrine amongst modern physicists and astronomers. How could such complex information be contained in a group of ancient texts barely larger than an average magazine? The answer is that the Kabbalah is written in code. Codes are used to conceal multi-layered complex information which would later be studied by medieval alchemists. Sir Isaac Newton and many leading scientists studied the rich occult sciences within the Kabbalah. There was a time when mysticism, religion, alchemy, astronomy, and astrology were studied as one Kabbalistically based tradition. Jewish physicist Albert Einstein conveyed pages and pages of complex calculations in a simple 5-symbol code. E equals mc squared. Modern-day quantum physics, chaos theory, and the notion of parallel universes can all be traced back to the original texts of the ancient Kabbalah. The higher secrets of the Kabbalah included instructions on how to kill a person with just one look. This is called the evil eye. The magical name for the evil eye is En-ha-Ra. In a wax cylinder recording made in 1921, we can hear British black magician and part-time espionage agent Aleister Crowley invoking the fallen demon angel Raziel and En-Ra-Ha, the evil eye. Since medieval times, the Jewish people have been considered a race of magicians. The biblical rabbis used shaman-type techniques to induce altered states of consciousness. Fasting, flagellation, and burying oneself up to the neck were all techniques used to prepare the rabbi-magician for a battle through the 7 portals of the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, where they would eventually meet the supreme deity in a realm called the Merkaba. Ritual sex magic was also practiced amongst some Jewish cults. Many temples had holes in the walls so that rabbis could ritually sodomize a prostitute, a young man or a boy, and invoke the fallen angel Raziel as they reached sexual climax. The word sodomy is derived from the name of the biblical city of Sodom, in which sex magic and also blood sacrifice were widely practiced. A strange version of vampirism, or blood drinking, is still practiced to this day by many rabbis, who suck the blood from the freshly severed foreskin of newborn babies. Much of the ritual we see in the modern-day Catholic Church, such as the symbolic eating the flesh of Christ and the symbolic drinking of his blood, are derived from ancient Jewish rituals in which different forms of vampirism and blood sacrifice were an accepted part of this occult tradition. After all, the Pope does wear a Jewish yarmulke. The collection of texts called the Kabbalah were eventually transcribed by Rabbi Isaac the Blind in Provence in the south of France during the 12th century. For the first time in its 6,000-year history, the ancient magical techniques of invoking fallen demonic angels and killing someone using the evil eye were put down on paper. The Kabbalistic writings of Isaac the Blind fell into the hands of a group of 9 French noblemen. These noblemen became known as the Knights Templar. The word Cabal, meaning a group who conspire together, comes from the word Kabbalah. One such cabal, who were to later inspire a whole armada of black magic cults and Freemasonry, were the so-called Knights Templar. They laughingly called themselves the Poor Knights of Christ, but these men were far from poor. They deliberately styled themselves as monks so that they could go about their Luciferian Kabbalistic studies and conduct business without being taxed nor arouse suspicion from the Vatican. The Kabbalistic higher secrets of ritual sodomy, the evil eye, chanting incantations, necromancy, blood sacrifice, and invoking the fallen angels in service to Lucifer fascinated the French Knights Templar. They realized that the Kabbalah originated in Palestine, and once they had realized that the Kabbalah was the key to untold spiritual magical power, they cunningly planned a bloody crusade to Palestine in order to search for more Kabbalistic and magical artifacts. They eventually discovered and looted the Temple of Solomon. Solomon was a biblical magician king who is accredited with inspiring large parts of the corpus of works we now know as the Kabbalah. The Knights Templar arrived in Palestine with one main goal: to stop the Muslims from gaining any knowledge about the Kabbalah. Historical Islamic oral accounts from the 12th century testify to a sickening crusade of plunder, torture, murder, and sexual depravity. The Knights Templar, once they had discovered the magical teachings of the Kabbalah, were dedicated utterly to destroying its origins so that they might hold its secrets exclusively. Archaeologists have found ample evidence of tunnels constructed by the Templars in Jerusalem. They are widely believed to have found and brought back to Europe the fabled Holy Grail. The so-called Holy Grail is actually a set of higher magical teachings. It is not an object, but a piece of information. Utterly Kabbalistic in its origin, the Holy Grail is the highest Kabbalistic secret. That is, that physical matter can be transformed molecule by molecule by the use of incantations of ancient Hebrew letters and numbers, and that the nature of reality is really an illusion.
Disturbing allegations are surfacing in a very unexpected place. A man who is supposed to bring joy and holiness to the Jewish ritual of circumcision is now accused of something unthinkable, spreading a deadly disease to innocent babies. News 12's Tara Rosenblum joins us now with her special report, Cradle of Secrets.
It's a topic that not many people want to talk about, but an unlikely whistleblower, a young Orthodox Jewish woman, is now speaking out, claiming a local rabbi is infecting babies, making them sick. And what's worse, she says no one is doing anything to stop him. For centuries, when a Jewish baby boy is born, the ancient ritual of circumcision is performed. But in some ultra-Orthodox communities, religious leaders, known as moyals, also engage in something controversial during the bris. In a practice known as Metzitze B'Peh, or just MBP, the moyal actually uses his mouth to suck the blood from the infant's penis after he cuts off the foreskin. Meant to prevent infection and serve as a celebration of life, News 12 has learned the little-known practice has turned into a curse for life for some babies involved in our area. And it's all because of a local rabbi who's alleged to have a sexually transmitted disease.
The rabbis are going to take care of it. They won't let him get away with it.
According to these documents we obtained from the State Health Department, Rabbi Yitzhak Fisher of Muncie has been tied to at least 3 herpes infections in babies, one of whom died back in 2004. Shortly after the tragic death, Rabbi Fisher was forbidden from practicing NBP in New York. But despite this state-issued ban, one concerned mother tells us the infected moil is still placing innocent lives at risk.
They should be arresting Rabbi Fisher. He should be in jail for murder, for homicide, for infanticide.
This outraged parent, we'll call Rena, who asked us to disguise her face and voice, claims she can prove Rabbi Fisher is still practicing NBP. She says she very recently secretly recorded a phone conversation with him in which she requested the rabbi to perform the controversial service.
There's nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about. I can only do interrupting practice. That's perfectly okay.
But at one point during the call, Rena questions the safety of oral suction and references the recently reported death of a baby in New York City just last September.
The baby passed away on Rosh Hashanah. So it took them 5 months for the health department to convince the medical examiner to add the word oral suction to record the death. The medical examiner did not want to do it. But the newspaper picked it up and was enough to make the issue.
Were you shocked when Rabbi Fisher told you that?
Shocked is an understatement. It's unbelievable that this goes on, and this man is maiming and killing children, babies.
Yet we found no shortage of Hasidic Jews in Muncie willing to defend the rabbi.
Everybody knows he's an honest person.
And his actions.
We used him and his son in the past, and we've been very happy with him.
Traditionally, it's the right thing to do, and we think he's a good person and he's doing it right.
This is part of our law, what we have to do.
Not so, says Rabbi Yehoshua Krohn.
It makes me cringe.
The fifth-generation Moyle lives just minutes away from Rabbi Fisher, but practices NBP in a very different way.
Judaism mandates that we do this mitzvah, this commandment, but in a way that is na'im, which is sweet, meaning that there is no hurt. The point is that there is no harm to the child. In religious circles where they want the metzitza b'peh, we use only the tube. And for those that want it over and beyond the tube, we'll call someone who will do it that way for them.
But you never know when that someone else could have a sexually transmitted disease. Just last month, yet another baby got infected with herpes after undergoing NBP in Orange County. Now, Rena is on a mission to spread awareness about the dangers of oral suction, something her own son went through without her even knowing.
After the circumcision takes place, I'm handed the baby, but I have no idea what happened there. It's like being in surgery. You're not there when the baby has surgery. I was shocked. I couldn't get over it. I told my husband, we allowed this to happen? He said, nobody asked. This is just how things are done. So I want the Department of Health telling people this is what takes place. You can do it if you want, but know the facts. Know that you're putting your baby at risk.
Now, Rockland County's Health Commissioner, Dr. Joan Fussell, refused to speak with us on camera about any of that, but she did tell us that they've agreed to start handing out this informational pamphlet called Before the Bris, How to Protect Your Baby Against Infections. These brochures will be handed out to all parents of newborn boys here in Rockland County. As for Rabbi Fisher, who we repeatedly tried but were unable to reach, the health department told us he should not be performing NBP anywhere in the state. But because the victims' families refused to press charges against him, it appears their hands are tied when it comes to enforcing the ban, meaning Rabbi Fisher's hands are still free to perform a centuries-old ritual that could place another baby's life at risk. Now, while Rabbi Fisher is not facing any criminal charges that we're aware of, multiple sources have told us he is being looked at by the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. In the meantime, Rena's just hoping by coming forward, more families will have the courage to speak out, or at the very least, ask more questions before their baby is circumcised. Tara Rosenblum, News 12.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו בדבר ציוונו על המילה.
ברוך אתה אדוני מלך העולם אשר קידשנו מצוותיו וציוונו למסור בביתו של אברהם אבינו. ברוך אתה אדוני מלך העולם
שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו בזמן הזה. אמן. אשר תבחרנו במצוותיו, והציוונו להכניסו בביתו של אברהם אבינו.
In a unanimous decision, New York City's Department of Health agreed parents must first give their written consent before allowing Moyles to perform a controversial part of the Jewish circumcision ritual.
We have clearly identified that one specific procedure that's performed as part of some circumcisions, what we're calling direct oral suction, can be transmitting infections to infants.
The new regulations, the first in the country, come after health officials identified 11 babies who contracted herpes from the oral part of the circumcision. 2 of them died. The Centers for Disease Control has stated the procedure is not safe.
Not only is it a safe method, it's the safest method.
Rabbi William Handler calls this a direct attack on the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community and its customs, and says government is overstepping its bounds. Cantor Philip Sherman says he's performed more than 20,000 circumcisions, 6 just today. He says this is not about Jewish tradition, but rather everyone's well-being.
Now, today, we know that germs can be transferred, diseases can be transferred from the baby to the moil and from the moil to the baby. So therefore, you can continue this custom by using a sterile tube, a gauze pad, and the rest of the bris is fine.
My next guest was used also in worshiping the devil, participated in human sacrifice rituals and cannibalism. She says her family has been involved in rituals for generations. She is currently in extensive therapy, suffers from multiple personality disorder, meaning she's blocked out many of the terrifying and painful memories of her childhood. Meet Rachel, who is also in disguise to protect her identity. You come from generations of ritualistic abuse?
Yes, my family has an extensive family tree, and they keep track of who's been involved and who hasn't been involved. And it's gone back to, like, 1700.
And so you were...
Right. I was born into a family that believes in this.
And does everyone else think it's a nice Jewish family? From the outside, you appear to be a nice Jewish girl?
Definitely.
And you all are worshiping the devil inside the home?
Right. There's other Jewish families across the country. It's not just my own family.
Really? And so who knows about it? Lots of people now.
I talked to a police detective in the Chicago area, and several of my friends know, and I've spoke publicly before.
And so when you were brought up in this kind of evilness, did you just think it was normal?
I've blocked out a lot of the memories I had because of my multiple personality disorder. But yes, I mean, it's like if you grow up with something, you think it's normal.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought
So what kinds of things? You don't have to give us the gory details, but what kinds of things went on in the family?
Well, there would be rituals in which babies would be sacrificed, and you would have to, you know...
Whose babies?
There were people who bred babies in their family. No one would know about it. A lot of people were overweight, so you couldn't tell if they were pregnant or not, or they would supposedly go away for a while and then come back. The other thing I want to point out, not all Jewish people sacrifice babies. I mean, no. That's not a very
difficult thing.
I just want to point that out.
This is the first time I heard of any Jewish people sacrificing babies. But anyway, so you witnessed the sacrifice.
Right. When I was very young, I was forced to participate in that, in which I had to sacrifice an infant.
And the purpose of sacrifice is to what? Is to bring you what? What are you sacrificing for?
For power.
Uh-huh. Power. And so, were you ever used? Were you ever used yourself?
I was molested. I was raped several times.
Mm-hmm. What's your mother doing?
She's...
In all of this? What's her role in all of this?
I'm not exactly what her role is. I haven't, recovered all of my memories, but her family was extremely involved.
Mm-hmm.
She brought me to it. Both of my parents brought me to it.
And where is she now?
She lives in the Chicago metropolitan area. She's on the Human Relations Commission of the town that she lives in, and she's an upstanding citizen. Nobody would suspect her.
Were you raised with a sense of right and wrong, Rachel?
Yeah. I mean, it's like I had both. I mean, to the outside world, everything we did was proper and right, and then there were the nights that things changed, that things just got turned around. What was wrong was right, and what was right was wrong. That's what helps to create somebody, to develop MPD.
Mm-hmm. Multiple personality.
Right, right.
Now, in your family, did you all call it worshiping the devil,
No,
Rachel? Or
I don't know.
It was just evil, these things you did.
Right. Well, I said it was evil, and they said it was good. There's a book that I had just come across called Lilith's Cave, which is a book of Jewish mysticism and supernatural, and there's a lot in that book that relates to what I, endured when I was a child.
But I know that Israel does not stand alone. I know that America stands with Israel. I know that you stand with Israel.
President Trump, thank you for the truly warm hospitality you and Melania have shown me, my wife Sarah, our entire delegation. I deeply value your friendship. To me, to the State of Israel, it was so clearly evident in the words you just spoke. Israel has no better ally than the United States. And I want to assure you, the United States has no better ally than Israel. Our alliance has been remarkably strong. But under your leadership, I'm confident it will get even stronger. I look forward to working with you to dramatically upgrade our alliance in every field, in security, in technology, in cyber and trade, and so many others, and I certainly welcome your forthright call to ensure that Israel is treated fairly in international forums, and that the slander and boycotts of Israel are resisted mightily by the power and moral position of the United States of America. As you have said, our alliance is based on a deep bond of common values and common interests.
My name is Donald Trump, and I'm a big fan of Israel. And frankly, a strong prime minister is a strong Israel. And you truly have a great prime minister. In Benjamin Netanyahu, there's nobody like him.
Shalom, Israel Republicans. I'm Governor Mike Pence. It's a great honor for Donald Trump and I to stand together with you tonight in support of Israel.
Well, since 1949, Washington's provided Israel with more than $120 billion in financial aid. The annual donation is around $3 billion.
You only get $3 billion. And I said, Brian, that's only the foreign aid bill. Look at all the other trade compacts, economic assistance, military assistance. I'm saying this to you right now. Israel gets approximately $15 billion a year from the American taxpayers. That $15 billion is $30,000 for every man, woman, and child. And people in my district are losing their pension benefits.
He may be the worst thing to ever happen to Israel, believe me. Believe me. We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
But I believe that Israel has a powerful stranglehold on the American government. They control both members of the House and the Senate. They have us involved in wars of which we have little or no interest. Our children are coming back in body bags. Our nation is bankrupt over these wars. And if you open your mouth, you get targeted. And if they don't beat you at the poll, they'll put you in prison. And if someone doesn't look into this, the American people should be ashamed of themselves. When you allow one American to be violated, you threaten the freedoms of every American. And I can't understand this, why no one in Congress is raising their voice.
The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him, to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. Blessed is he that hear the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein. For the time is at hand. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Even so, Amen. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, saith the Lord, which is, and which was, and which is to come, the Almighty. I know thy works, and tribulation, and poverty, but thou art rich, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews, and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Synagogue of Satan. Synagogue of Satan. Synagogue of Satan.
The believers who think that the Jewish people in Israel right now are the real Jews, to me, are like the weirdest people, because not only do they not fit the description, Revelation literally tells you that they are not the real Jews. I often question, where is everybody's discernment? How could we read the same book and not have the same conclusion? The reason why so many people cannot accept who the real Jews are is deeply rooted in white supremacy and racism. And so many people will say that it doesn't matter, but how could it not matter? How does it not matter? It was picked by the Most High. How could it not matter? And if it didn't matter, why was it changed?